My name is Sylvester. I'm 30 years old, and I never thought my own sister would humiliate me at her wedding. I'm an engineer from Boston who helped pay for Amanda's perfect day to the tune of $14,200. Being the black sheep in our picture-perfect family has always been tough, but nothing prepared me for seeing my face plastered on a giant, no-entry banner at the venue entrance. I stood there, gift box in hand, as security blocked my path. Before I tell you how this wedding disaster unfolded, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see what happened when I confronted my family about this public humiliation. Growing up in Brookline, an affluent suburb just outside Boston, meant living in a world where appearances were everything. Our neighborhood was lined with colonial-style homes with perfectly manicured lawns, luxury cars in every driveway, and families who seemed to have stepped right out of a magazine spread. My family fit right in, at least from the outside. My father, Richard, was a high-powered corporate attorney whose client list included some of the biggest names in the financial sector. He worked 80-hour weeks, wore custom suits, and expected perfection from everyone around him. My mother, Margaret, was the quintessential socialite who served on the boards of 3 different charities, hosted dinner parties that were the talk of the town, and maintained a social calendar that left little room for genuine family time. Then there was my sister, Amanda. 4 years younger than me, she was the golden child from the moment she was born. With her blonde hair, bright smile, and natural ability to charm everyone, she met Amanda became the poster child for our family's image. She was a straight-A student captain of the cheerleading squad and seemed to instinctively understand the social rules that always felt foreign to me. I was different from the beginning. While the rest of my family had blonde hair and blue eyes, I had inherited my grandfather's darker features. I was introspective, creative, and questioned everything. I preferred spending time in our basement workshop, building robots, or designing contraptions, rather than attending the social functions my parents deemed important. Sylvester, why can't you just put on a nice shirt and smile for once? My mother would ask before every family photo. Everyone else makes an effort. The family photos became a metaphor for my place in the family. I was literally pushed to the edges, told to stand behind taller relatives, or sometimes asked to sit out entirely because I didn't fit the aesthetic. By the time I was 12, I'd grown accustomed to hearing, "Maybe Sylvester can take this one," when the cameras came out at family gatherings. Amanda quickly learned from our parents. She watched how they treated me and followed their lead. When her friends came over, she would introduce me as my weird brother, or sometimes not acknowledge me at all. If I excelled at something like the state science fair, where I won first place in 8th grade, Amanda would find a way to redirect attention to her achievements. "That's nice, Sylvester," my father said, after my science fair win, barely looking up from his newspaper. 2 days later, when Amanda received an honorable mention in a regional essay contest, my parents took the whole family out to celebrate at the most expensive restaurant in Boston. By high school, the divide had grown deeper. I was the odd one out, the family member who never quite belonged. I had my small group of friends who appreciated my inventive mind and dry humor, but at home I was increasingly isolated. When it came time for college applications, the schism became even more apparent. "You're applying to MIT for engineering. That's not a realistic path, Sylvester," my father said dismissively. "We've already talked about law school. The family has connections at Harvard Law." "I don't want to be a lawyer," I replied. "I want to build things that make a difference." "Building things is a hobby, not a career for someone with your background," my mother added. "Think about the family reputation." Despite their disapproval, I applied to MIT and got in with a partial scholarship. Instead of celebrating my parents, treated it as a rebellion. Amanda, who was preparing for her own college applications, commented, "Well, at least one of us will maintain the family tradition," making it clear she would follow the approved path. When I moved into my dorm at MIT, my parents dropped me off with minimal fanfare. My mother gave me a perfunctory hug, and my father offered a handshake and a stern reminder about not wasting this opportunity. Amanda didn't even come along for the drop-off, claiming she had an important social event. Throughout college, I tried to maintain a relationship with Amanda, despite the growing distance. I'd call her regularly, send birthday and Christmas gifts, and try to stay updated on her life. Her responses were usually brief and superficial. When I attended family gatherings during breaks, She would be cordial but distant, often disappearing with her friends after the obligatory family dinner. There were moments when I thought we might bridge the gap. Once, during her senior year of high school, Amanda called me in tears after a fight with her boyfriend. I stayed on the phone with her for hours, offering advice and support. For a few weeks afterward, she seemed genuinely appreciative and more open with me. But as soon as our parents praised her for handling the breakup with dignity, she reverted to treating me as an outsider. The pattern continued through our early 20s. Amanda followed our parents' blueprint, exactly prestigious undergraduate degree internships at the right companies, social connections with the right families. Meanwhile, I was building my own path, one that diverged significantly from the family plan but brought me genuine fulfillment. The contrast between us only deepened the divide that had been forming since childhood. Looking back, I should have seen the wedding disaster coming. There were countless warning signs, small betrayals, that foreshadowed the ultimate public rejection. Like the time Amanda forgot to mention, I was in town when she hosted a family dinner. Or when she conveniently didn't pass along an invitation to our cousin's graduation party, claiming she thought I wouldn't be interested. But family ties are powerful, and I kept believing that eventually we would find common ground. That deep down beneath all the pretense and social climbing there was still a connection worth saving. I couldn't have been more wrong. By my late 20s, I had established myself as a successful engineer at Green Tech Innovations, a renewable energy company that was making waves in the industry. My team had developed a more efficient solar panel design that was being implemented in projects across the country, and I had recently been promoted to lead engineer with a substantial salary increase. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just doing well by my own standards. I was succeeding by any objective measure. Not that my parents noticed. During our infrequent phone calls, my mother would listen to news about my career achievements with the same distracted politeness she might show to a distant acquaintance talking about their vacation photos. My father was more direct in his dismissal. "That's all well and good, Sylvester, but have you considered getting an MBA? You could move into management, make some real money," he said after I told him about a patent my team had secured. "I am making real money, Dad," I replied. "And more importantly, I'm doing work that matters." "Well, it's no corner office on the 40th floor, but I suppose it suits you," he conceded, making it clear that in his eyes, my success would always be second-rate. Amanda had graduated from an Ivy League university with a business degree and landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm in Boston. She had cultivated the perfect social media presence, showcasing a life of brunches, charity galas, and vacations in exclusive locations. When she announced her engagement to Bradley Winchester III, whose family owned a chain of luxury hotels along the East Coast, my parents were ecstatic. The engagement party was held at the Winchester family's estate in the Berkshires, a sprawling property with gardens that seemed to stretch for miles. I received an invitation which surprised me given our strained relationship. Even more surprising was Amanda's phone call a few days before the event. "Sylvester, I really hope you can make it," she said, her voice warmer than it had been in years. "It would mean a lot to have my brother there." Hopeful that this might be a turning point, I drove the 3 hours to the estate, wearing a new suit I had purchased, specifically for the occasion. Amanda greeted me with a hug that seemed genuinely affectionate, and for a few hours, I felt like part of the family again. She introduced me to Bradley, who seemed pleasant if somewhat bland, and I made polite conversation with the future in-laws. As the evening progressed, Amanda pulled me aside to a quiet corner of the terrace. "I've been thinking about the wedding," she began, "and I'd really like you to be involved." My heart lifted. After years of feeling like an outsider, was she actually asking me to be part of her special day? Perhaps as a groomsman, or even to give a speech? "Of course," I said. "Whatever you need, I'm there." "Great," she beamed. "So the thing is, we're having some budget issues. The venue we want is really exclusive, and even with both our parents contributing, we're a bit short." And there it was. Not an olive branch, but a request for money. "How much are you talking about?" I asked, trying to hide my disappointment. "Well, the venue is $25,000, the catering is around $15,000, and the band is another $12,000. She rattled off the numbers as if discussing the weather. "We're short about $14,200 total." The precision of the number suggested she had calculated exactly how much she thought she could extract from me. I should have said no. I should have made an excuse about my own expenses or investments. Instead, I heard myself say, "I'll help. I can cover that." Amanda's face lit up with genuine excitement for the first time that evening. "Really? Oh, Sylvester, that's amazing. I knew I could count on you." Over the following months, I became more involved in the wedding planning than I had anticipated. Amanda would call regularly with updates, send me photos of flowers and table settings, ask my opinion on menu selections. I began to believe that my financial contribution had actually opened a door to rebuilding our relationship. I paid the vendors directly $5,000 for the venue deposit, $6,200 for the catering, and $3,000 for the band. I kept all the receipts, partly out of habit, and partly because something in the back of my mind warned me to maintain a paper trail. As the wedding approached, I decided to go above and beyond with my gift. Amanda and Bradley had registered for the usual assortment of luxury housewares, but I wanted to give them something truly significant. Using a substantial portion of my savings and taking advantage of a connection through a college friend who had gone into real estate, I put a down payment on a small but stylish apartment in downtown Boston, not far from where Amanda worked. The market was hot, and properties in that area were both scarce and expensive. It would be perfect for the newlyweds, a significant upgrade from the rental they were currently sharing. Then, about 3 weeks before the wedding, things began to change. Amanda's calls became less frequent and more businesslike. She stopped asking for my input on wedding details. When I tried to confirm arrangements for the rehearsal dinner, she was vague about the schedule. 10 days before the wedding, I still hadn't received a formal invitation. When I called to ask about it, Amanda sounded flustered. "Oh, did we forget to send yours? I'm sure it just got lost in the mail." "Don't worry about it, you're definitely invited. We've got you at table 19. Table 19. I later learned that was the table furthest from the bridal party, where they had seated distant relatives and coworkers they felt obligated to invite, but didn't actually want to interact with. 2 days before the wedding, I finally received a text message, "Wedding at Winchester Estate, 3 p.m. Saturday. Wear formal attire." No warm message. No expression of appreciation for my financial contribution. Not even an explanation for the last-minute notification. My friend Jordan, who had watched this relationship dynamic play out for years, warned me, "Sil, I don't like this. They're using you for your money and planning to sideline you at the actual event. I wouldn't go if I were you." "She's still my sister," I replied, "and I've already invested so much in this. I want to see it through." "Just be prepared for more disappointment," Jordan cautioned. "These people have shown you who they are repeatedly." I dismissed his concerns, convincing myself that this wedding would be different, that my generosity would finally earn me the respect and inclusion I had been seeking from my family for decades. I had the apartment keys wrapped in a beautiful box ready to surprise Amanda and Bradley with their extravagant gift. I was certain this gesture would finally bridge the gap between us. How wrong I was. The day of Amanda's wedding dawned bright and clear, one of those perfect New England autumn days that seemed designed specifically for celebrations. I woke early, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Despite the lukewarm invitation and the warning signs, I was determined to approach the day with optimism. This was my sister's wedding after all. Surely on such an important occasion, old grievances would be set aside. I dressed carefully in my best suit, a charcoal gray three-piece that I had splurged on specifically for this event. The gift box containing the apartment keys and documentation sat on my passenger seat as I drove the winding roads to the Winchester estate, a journey that took nearly 2 hours from my apartment in Cambridge. The estate looked even more impressive than it had during the engagement party. The long driveway was lined with white rose petals and staff, in formal attire directed arriving cars to a designated parking area. Luxury vehicles filled the lot, Mercedes BMWs, even a couple of Bentleys. My modest Audi, while respectable, was clearly one of the more conservative cars present. As I walked toward the garden where the ceremony would take place, I passed several guests who recognized me from previous family events. They greeted me warmly, which bolstered my confidence. Perhaps things would go better than I had feared. "Sylvester, good to see you called out my father's colleague, Thomas Bradford. Your sister must be thrilled to have you here for her big day." "Absolutely," I replied, not wanting to hint at any family discord. It's an important day for all of us. I continued toward the main entrance, where an elegant archway had been constructed, draped with flowers and twinkling lights. From a distance, it looked like a scene from a fairy tale. But as I got closer, I noticed something that seemed out of place among the delicate decorations. A large banner hung prominently at the entrance. At first, I couldn't make out what it depicted. Then, as I drew nearer, my blood ran cold. It was my face. A photograph taken from what must have been my sister's social media, blown up to an enormous size. And across it, in bold red letters that could not be mistaken, were the words, "No entry." I stopped in my tracks, certain there had been some mistake. Perhaps it was a bizarre prank, or an art installation unrelated to the wedding. But as I approached, 2 security guards stepped forward, blocking my path. "I'm sorry, sir, but we have strict instructions not to allow you to enter," said the taller of the 2, a bulky man in a black suit, with an earpiece. "There must be some misunderstanding," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady despite the shock. "I'm Sylvester Harper. I'm the bride's brother." "Yes, sir, we know who you are," he responded, glancing briefly at the banner with my face on it, "and our instructions are very specific. You are not permitted to enter the premises." People nearby had begun to notice the confrontation. Some were staring openly, while others pretended not to see while stealing glances. The humiliation was acute, burning through me like acid. "I need to speak with Amanda," I insisted. "Or the wedding planner. Someone who can clear this up." After a moment's hesitation, the guard gestured to a woman in a pantsuit who was carrying a tablet and speaking urgently into a headset. "That's the wedding planner, Miss Richardson. You can try talking to her, but I'm not moving from this spot." I approached Miss Richardson, who saw me coming, and immediately looked uncomfortable. Before I could even speak, she held up a hand. "Mr. Harper, I'm aware of the situation, and I'm very sorry about this, but I have explicit instructions from the bride." "This can't be right," I said, feeling increasingly desperate. "I helped pay for this wedding. The venue, the catering, the band. I have receipts." Miss Richardson's expression shifted slightly, suggesting this was news to her. "I'm sorry, but my hands are tied." The bride and her parents were very clear. I pulled out my phone and dialed Amanda's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result. Finally, I called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring. "Sylvester, now is not a good time." "Mom, I'm standing outside the wedding venue, and there's a banner with my face on it saying, 'No entry. The security won't let me in. What's going on?'" There was a pause, then a sigh. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and detached. "We have to look like a perfect family today. Sylvester, that means without you." The words hit me like a physical blow. I had known for years that I was considered the family disappointment, but to be explicitly excluded, publicly humiliated, on what should have been a day of celebration was beyond anything I had imagined. "I paid $14,200 toward this wedding," I said, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "The venue, the catering, the band, they have my name on the contracts." "And we appreciate your contribution," my mother replied mechanically. "But Amanda wants her day to be perfect, and she feels your presence would be disruptive." "Disruptive? I'm her brother." "You've always insisted on being different, Sylvester. On standing out. Today is about Amanda, not you." The conversation continued in this vein for another minute or so, but it was clear that nothing I could say would change the situation. As we spoke, more guests arrived walking past me, with curious glances at the man arguing on the phone beneath a banner declaring him unwelcome. When I hung up, I felt physically ill. My stomach churned and my hands shook with a combination of rage, humiliation, and profound sadness. I had been naive to believe that my financial contribution would buy me acceptance. The truth was now painfully clear. No amount of money could change how my family saw me. I stood there for several minutes watching, as guests streamed past me into the venue. Some I recognized, others were strangers. A few looked embarrassed on my behalf, quickly averting their eyes. Others seemed to enjoy the drama, whispering to their companions, while casting glances in my direction. The security guards remained at their posts, watching me warily, as if expecting me to make a scene. The wedding planner had disappeared, presumably to handle other aspects of the event. I was alone, in a crowd explicitly rejected by my own family. I could have simply left, driven home with my tail between my legs, licked my wounds in private, and tried to forget the whole humiliating episode. That would have been the easiest path and probably what my family expected me to do. Slink away, disappear, and allow them to continue pretending they were perfect without the embarrassment of my presence. But something in me had finally broken. Years of conditional love, of being the family scapegoat, of trying desperately to earn approval that was never going to come, had taken their toll. I was done being the person who absorbed mistreatment with a smile, and came back for more. I looked down at the beautifully wrapped gift box in my hands, containing the keys to an apartment that represented months of saving planning and genuine care for my sister's future. And I knew exactly what I had to do. I returned to my car, placed the gift box on the hood, and sat in the driver's seat with the door open, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The autumn breeze carried the sound of a string quartet starting to play, signaling that the ceremony would begin soon. Guests were still arriving, casting curious glances at me as they passed. The banner with my crossed-out face fluttered in the wind, a public declaration of my exclusion. For a moment, I considered simply driving away. It would be easier to retreat, to nurse my wounds in private, rather than prolonging this public humiliation. But something had shifted inside me. Years of dismissal, of trying to earn love that should have been unconditional, of making myself smaller to fit into my family's narrow definition of acceptability, had taken their toll. I was done shrinking myself. I had two options: leave quietly, as I had done so many times before, or take a final stand. The apartment keys weighed heavily in the gift box. I had spent months arranging this surprise, working with real estate agents, signing papers, paying the down payment. It represented not just a significant financial investment, but a gesture of love and goodwill that I now realized was entirely unreciprocated. With a sudden clarity, I knew what I needed to do. I opened the gift box, removed the apartment keys and documentation, and placed them in my wallet. Then, I took out a notepad from my glove compartment and wrote, "Amanda, I had purchased an apartment for you and Bradley as a wedding gift. Given today's events, I've reconsidered. The keys indeed are no longer in this box. I've also contacted the venue catering and band to inform them that I'm withdrawing my financial support. Congratulations on your wedding. Sylvester." I placed the note in the box, rewrapped it, and sat for another moment, considering my next move. The rage and hurt were still there, but now accompanied by a strange sense of calm. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I was setting a boundary with my family rather than desperately trying to earn their approval. I picked up my phone and sent Amanda a text, "Gifts at the gate." Then I waited, positioning myself where I could observe the entrance through the car's side mirror. I didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes, I saw a flurry of activity at the venue entrance. Amanda appeared, still in her wedding dress, rushing toward the gates with an expression of eagerness that I had rarely seen directed at me. She spoke briefly to the security guards, who pointed in my direction. I got out of my car as she approached, her white dress billowing around her as she half ran, half walked across the parking area. Her face was flushed with excitement, a smile stretching from ear to ear. She clearly thought she was about to receive the keys to her new apartment, a gift that would be the crowning glory of her perfect day. "Sylvester, you brought the gift," she called out, her voice bright with anticipation. "I was worried when you didn't come in." The audacity was breathtaking. Not "I'm sorry about the banner" or "there's been a terrible misunderstanding." Just the naked expectation that I would hand over an expensive gift despite being publicly humiliated and barred from her wedding. "Didn't come in," I repeated, keeping my voice level. "Amanda, there's a banner with my face crossed out at the entrance and security guards with explicit instructions not to let me in." Her expression faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, that. It was just a joke, Sylvester. You know how Bradley's friends are with their pranks. I was going to have it taken down right after the ceremony." The lie was so transparent, it was almost insulting. A joke. Then why did Mom tell me explicitly that I wasn't welcome? Why did the wedding planner and security guards have specific instructions to keep me out? Amanda's smile disappeared entirely, now replaced by a calculating look. Let's not make a scene, okay? Where's the gift you mentioned? I handed her the box, watching her face carefully. She took it eagerly, her fingers already working to unwrap the elegant paper. I could almost see her mentally placing the keys in a prominent position during the reception, showing off to her friends how generous her weird brother had been despite everything. As she opened the box and found only the note, her expression changed from excitement to confusion, then to shock and finally to fury. She read the note twice, as if unable to believe what it said. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Where are the keys?" "There are no keys," I replied calmly. "I've reconsidered my gift in light of today's events." "You can't do that," she nearly shrieked. "That apartment was my wedding present." "A present from a brother who apparently isn't good enough to attend the wedding," I pointed out. "It seems contradictory to accept expensive gifts from someone you're publicly humiliating." Her face contorted with rage. "This is exactly why we didn't want you here. You always have to make everything about you. It's my wedding day, and you're trying to ruin it." "I didn't put up a banner excluding you from my life events," I said. "I didn't hire security to keep you away. I didn't lie and manipulate to get money from you while planning to cut you out." By now, our confrontation had drawn attention. Several guests had wandered over to see what the commotion was about. In the distance, I could see my parents emerging from the venue, their faces set in matching expressions of controlled anger. "You'll regret this," Amanda hissed. "Dad will cut you off completely." I couldn't help but laugh at that. Cut me off from what exactly? The family that puts my face on "Do not enter" signs. The warm embraces I've never received. The support that's always been conditional on me being someone I'm not. My parents reached us, then my father's face red with anger, my mother looking around anxiously at the gathering spectators. "What's going on here?" my father demanded. "Amanda, you should be preparing for the ceremony. Sylvester is trying to ruin everything." Amanda thrust the note at our father. "He promised us an apartment as a wedding gift, and now he's taking it back." My father scanned the note, his expression darkening. "Is this some kind of joke, Sylvester? You can't withdraw a gift like that." "Actually, I can," I replied, surprised by how steady my voice remained, "just like I can withdraw my financial support for this wedding. I have copies of all the receipts right here." I pulled out my phone, showing the digital copies I had saved. $14,200 for the venue, catering, and band, all with my name on the contracts. For the first time, my father looked uncertain. "You're bluffing. Those payments have already been made." "Yes, they have. By me. And I've already contacted all 3 vendors explaining the situation. As the contracts are in my name, they're legally obligated to refund my money if I withdraw my support. They may choose to continue providing their services if someone else pays, but that's up to them." My mother gasped. "You wouldn't." "Why not?" I asked, genuinely curious. "You've made it abundantly clear that I'm not part of this family when it counts. Why should I financially support an event I've been explicitly barred from attending?" "Because that's what family does," my father said through gritted teeth. "No," I corrected him. "Family doesn't exclude members who don't fit a superficial image. Family doesn't take money from someone and then put up banners prohibiting their entry. Family doesn't tell someone, 'We have to look like a perfect family, and that means without you.'" My mother flinched at hearing her own words quoted back to her. Around us, the crowd of onlookers had grown. The confrontation was becoming exactly the kind of scene my image-conscious parents had always dreaded. The confrontation in the parking lot was escalating rapidly. What had begun as a private exchange between Amanda and me had now drawn a significant audience. Guests who had been heading into the ceremony were now clustering around us, some pretending to wait for friends, while obviously eavesdropping others openly, watching the drama unfold. "This is not the time or place for this discussion," my father said in a low, threatening tone. "We will talk about this later." "No, we won't," I replied, surprising, even myself with my firmness. "We've had 30 years to have this conversation, and you've avoided it at every turn, so we're having it now." Amanda was still clutching the empty gift box, her knuckles white with tension. "This is my wedding day. How dare you make a scene like this?" "I didn't create this scene, Amanda. You did when you decided to publicly humiliate me with that banner. What did you think would happen? That I'd just slink away quietly and still let you have the apartment I bought for you?" Bradley appeared then, looking confused and uncomfortable in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. What's going on? The ceremony was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. Your fiancée and her family decided I wasn't good enough to attend the wedding despite my financial contributions, I explained before anyone else could speak. So, I've withdrawn both my monetary support and the apartment I had purchased as your wedding gift. Bradley's expression shifted from confusion to shock. Wait, what? Amanda, you told me Sylvester couldn't make it because of work commitments. This revelation caused a ripple of murmurs among the onlookers. Amanda's face flushed deep red. That's not important right now, she said quickly. What matters is that he's threatening to ruin our wedding by pulling his financial support. Financial support, Bradley repeated, looking increasingly bewildered. What financial support? I thought our parents were covering everything. It was becoming clear that Amanda had kept Bradley in the dark about my contributions. My father stepped in, attempting to regain control of the situation. Bradley, let's discuss this privately. We need to get back to the ceremony. He turned to the gathered guests with a forced smile. Everyone, please head back to your seats. We'll be starting momentarily. But the crowd didn't disperse. The drama was too compelling, the public airing of family secrets too intriguing to miss. I'd like to understand what's happening here. Bradley insisted, standing his ground. Amanda, did you exclude your brother from our wedding after he helped pay for it? It's complicated, Amanda replied evasively. Sylvester has always been difficult. He doesn't fit with the rest of the family. Difficult how? Bradley pressed. By helping pay for our wedding. By buying us an apartment as a gift. You don't understand, my mother interjected. Sylvester has always insisted on being different, on embarrassing the family with his unconventional choices. My unconventional choice to become an engineer instead of a lawyer, I asked. To prioritize meaningful work over status. To refuse to pretend we're a perfect family when we're anything but. Several of our extended family members had joined the growing circle now, including my Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, who had always been slightly more sympathetic to me than the rest of the family. Richard, she said, addressing my father, is this true? Did you exclude Sylvester from the wedding even though he contributed financially? My father's carefully maintained composure was beginning to crack. Patricia, this is a private family matter. It doesn't seem very private at the moment, she observed dryly. And it seems to me that you've been treating Sylvester poorly for years. I've noticed, but I never said anything. Perhaps that was a mistake. This unexpected support from a family member emboldened me. I've spent my entire life trying to earn love and acceptance from people who were never going to give it. Today was the final straw. So, yes, I am withdrawing my financial support. And yes, I am taking back the apartment I purchased. I took out my phone and dialed the number for the venue manager, putting it on speaker so everyone could hear. Hello, this is Marcus Evans at Winchester Estate, came the response. Marcus, this is Sylvester Harper. We spoke earlier about the payment for my sister's wedding. Yes, Mr. Harper. As I explained, the contract is indeed in your name, and you have the right to withdraw your financial support. However, given the circumstances, we would need immediate alternative payment to continue with the event. Amanda let out a strangled sound of distress. My father's face had gone from red to an alarming purple. Thank you, Marcus. That's all I needed to confirm. I ended the call and looked directly at my family. The venue needs payment within the hour to continue. The same goes for the catering and the band. You're bluffing, my father said, but the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. Call them yourself, I suggested, but we both know I'm not. Bradley, who had been listening intently to the entire exchange, suddenly spoke up. I'll cover it. All eyes turned to him. What Amanda asked clearly, not expecting this. I said I'll cover the costs, Bradley repeated firmly. But Amanda, we need to talk, privately. Now. As they moved a short distance away for what appeared to be an intense conversation, my father seized the opportunity to approach me. You've embarrassed this family for the last time, he hissed. You're done. No more connections, no more inheritance, nothing. That's fine, I replied calmly. I don't need your money, or your connections. I've built my own life, my own career, my own support system. What I wanted was your love and acceptance. But I finally realized those aren't things you're capable of giving. At least not to me. My mother, always more concerned with appearances than emotions, was frantically trying to usher guests back toward the venue. "Everything is fine," she kept saying. "Just a small family disagreement. The ceremony will begin shortly." But the damage was done. The carefully constructed facade of family perfection had cracked wide open, revealing the dysfunction beneath. Guests were whispering among themselves, some looking embarrassed, others fascinated by the unfolding drama. Aunt Patricia approached me, placing a gentle hand on my arm. "Sylvester, I'm sorry. I should have said something years ago about how they treat you." "It's not your fault," I assured her. "But thank you for speaking up today." In the distance, I could see Amanda and Bradley still deep in conversation. Her gestures were becoming increasingly agitated, while he maintained a stony expression. Whatever was being said, it didn't appear to be going in Amanda's favor. After what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only a few minutes, they returned to the group. Bradley's face was set in a determined expression. "The wedding will proceed," he announced. "I've arranged for alternative payment for the venue, catering, and band. Sylvester, while I wish circumstances were different, I respect your decision to withdraw your support." Amanda looked like she wanted to object, but remained silent. My father nodded stiffly, clearly relieved that the wedding would continue but furious about the public humiliation. Bradley wasn't finished. "However, there's one condition. That banner comes down. Immediately." My mother started to protest, but Bradley cut her off. "This is non-negotiable. I won't begin my marriage with such a blatant display of disrespect toward a family member." For a moment no one moved. Then Bradley turned to one of the security guards. "Please remove that banner now." The guard looked to my father for confirmation, who eventually gave a terse nod. As the guard moved to take down the offensive display, Bradley turned to me. "Sylvester, I apologize for how you've been treated. While I understand you may not wish to attend the ceremony, given what's transpired, know that you would be welcome." It was a generous offer, especially considering the circumstances. But I knew it was time for me to leave. "Thank you, Bradley, but I think it's best if I go. I wish you well in your marriage. I truly do." As I turned to leave, Amanda called after me, her voice a mixture of anger and desperation. "Sylvester, the apartment. You can't just take it back." I paused, turning to face my sister one last time. "Actually, I can, and I have. Consider it the price of your perfect family image." With that, I walked back to my car, got in, and drove away, leaving behind the family that had never truly accepted me and the facade they had worked so hard to maintain. In my rearview mirror, I could see the banner being taken down, a small victory in what had been a lifetime of defeats. But somehow, driving away felt not like a retreat, but like the first step towards something new, something authentic, something better. I had barely reached the main road when my phone began ringing. I glanced at the screen, half expecting to see my father's name, perhaps calling to deliver one final tirade. Instead, it was a number I didn't recognize. After a moment's hesitation, I answered, "Sylvester, this is Edward Winchester, Bradley's father." I pulled over to the shoulder, surprised. "Mr. Winchester, what can I do for you?" "I'd like to speak with you if you have a moment. My wife and I are just leaving the estate. Could we meet you somewhere?" Curiosity got the better of me. "There's a coffee shop about 5 miles down the road. Hamilton's. I can meet you there." "We'll be there in 15 minutes, he replied and hung up. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I arrived, just a couple of college students with laptops in the corner and a barista who looked bored. I ordered a black coffee and chose a table near the back away from the windows. I had no idea what Bradley's parents wanted to discuss, but after the scene at the wedding, I wasn't eager to be seen with members of the wedding party. Edward and Eleanor Winchester arrived precisely when they said they would. They were an imposing couple in their early 60s, both tall and immaculately dressed. Edward had the confident bearing of someone accustomed to being in charge, while Eleanor's keen eyes missed nothing as they surveyed the modest coffee shop. "Thank you for meeting us," Edward said, as they sat down across from me. "We felt it was important to speak with you directly." "I appreciate that," I replied cautiously. "But I'm not sure what there is to discuss. I assume the wedding is proceeding as planned now." Eleanor nodded. "It is. Bradley has taken care of the financial arrangements. But that's not why we wanted to talk to you. Edward leaned forward slightly. Sylvester, we've known your family socially for many years. We've always found the discrepancy between their public image and the reality troubling. This was not what I had expected. What do you mean? We mean, Eleanor continued, that we've observed how your parents and sister treat you. The exclusion, the dismissal of your accomplishments, the constant emphasis on conformity. It's something we've noticed at various events over the years. We had concerns about Amanda's character long before today, Edward added. The way she treats service staff, when she thinks no one important, is watching. Her habit of taking credit for other people's ideas. Small things perhaps, but telling. Then why approve of the marriage? I asked, genuinely curious. Bradley is 34, Eleanor said with a slight smile. He makes his own decisions. We raised our concerns, but ultimately, it's his life. And to be fair, Edward continued, we had hoped that perhaps our impressions were wrong. That your sister's behavior was perhaps a reflection of insecurity rather than character. Today proved otherwise. I was still processing this unexpected perspective when my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from my cousin Michael. What happened today was wrong. Call me when you can. Several of us want to talk. As I glanced at the message, Edward spoke again. We wanted you to know that we respect how you handled yourself today. It took courage to stand up to your family after years of mistreatment. And we wanted to apologize, Eleanor added. Not for our son, or for Amanda, but for the fact that we've observed this dynamic for years and never said anything. Sometimes silence can be a form of complicity. I felt a strange mixture of validation and grief. All these years, others had seen what was happening, but had remained silent. Yet here were Bradley's parents, people I barely knew, offering more support and understanding than my own family ever had. Thank you, I said finally. That means more than you know. We talked for another half hour. They shared stories of their own family challenges of Bradley's older brother, who had struggled with addiction, of their own journey to recognize that perfection was an impossible and ultimately destructive goal. As we were preparing to leave, Edward handed me his business card. If you ever need anything professional or personal, please don't hesitate to reach out. Back in my car, I checked my phone to find several more messages. One from Jordan asking if I was okay, another from Aunt Patricia expressing her support, and most surprisingly, one from Rebecca, Amanda's maid of honor. Sylvester, what happened today was awful. Amanda has been getting worse for years. The stories I could tell you about how she's treated people, even her so-called friends. I should have said something sooner. Are you okay? I sat there reading and rereading these messages, feeling a shift in my understanding of the day's events. What I had experienced as a personal humiliation was being viewed by others as the breaking point in a pattern of behavior they had long observed but never confronted. As I was about to start driving, one more message came through. From Bradley, "Can we talk, just the two of us? It's important." I hesitated, then replied with the name of a bar near my apartment in Cambridge. "I'll be there at 8, I added. The bar was a quiet place, more neighborhood watering hole than trendy hotspot. I arrived early and claimed a booth in the back. When Bradley walked in at exactly 8, he was alone and had changed from his wedding tuxedo into jeans and a button-down shirt. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sliding into the booth. "I ordered us both a beer. I hope that's okay." I nodded, studying him. He looked tired, the events of the day clearly having taken their toll. "Shouldn't you be at your wedding reception?" I asked. "It's on pause," he replied. "We're having a reassessment." Meaning I told Amanda we needed to postpone the reception until tomorrow while we discuss what happened today. What she did, what it reveals about her character and values. The server arrived with our beers, and we both took long drinks before continuing. "I had no idea about the banner," Bradley said, "or about you being banned from the wedding. Amanda told me you couldn't attend because of work obligations. I only found out the truth when I overheard guests talking about the scene at the entrance. And the financial contribution, also kept from me. She told me your parents were covering everything." He sighed deeply. "Sylvester, I'm not sure I know who I'm marrying anymore." Part of me felt vindicated hearing this. Another part felt a strange sense of responsibility. Despite everything, Amanda was still my sister. People make mistakes, I said carefully. Especially under the pressure of something like a wedding. Bradley shook his head. This wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. The banner, the security instructions, the lie to me about your absence. And when confronted, her first concern wasn't that she had hurt you or lied to me, but that she might not get the apartment you had purchased. He was right, of course. But it was one thing for me to recognize my sister's flaws, and another to potentially contribute to the collapse of her marriage, on what should have been her wedding day. What do you want from me, Bradley? I asked directly. Honesty, he replied without hesitation. Has this pattern of behavior been consistent throughout your lives? Is this who she truly is? I thought carefully before answering. Amanda has always prioritized appearance over authenticity and status over genuine connection. That's how our parents raised us both. I rejected it. She embraced it. And the manipulation. Those have gotten worse as we've gotten older, I admitted. But Bradley, people can change, if they want to badly enough. He nodded slowly. That's the question, isn't it? Whether she wants to change? Whether she even recognizes that there's a problem. We talked for another hour about Amanda, about our family dynamics, about his own doubts and concerns. As the conversation wound down, he asked one final question. What would you do? If you were in my position, I considered this carefully. I would have an honest conversation with Amanda about what happened today and what it represents. Her response will tell you everything you need to know about your future together. Bradley nodded, looking slightly more at peace than when he had arrived. Thank you for your honesty, and for meeting me despite everything that happened. As he stood to leave, he extended his hand. Whatever happens with Amanda and me, I hope you and I can maintain some kind of relationship. I think you're someone worth knowing, Sylvester. I shook his hand, feeling an unexpected sense of connection with this man who had been thrust into the dysfunction of my family. I'd like that. After he left, I sat alone in the booth, finishing my beer and reflecting on the day's events. The public humiliation had been painful, yes, but it had also broken open secrets, long kept, forced conversations, long avoided, and revealed allies I never knew I had. My phone buzzed again, with another message from my cousin Michael. Several of us are getting together tomorrow to talk about what happened. We want you to know you're not alone in this. You never were. Perhaps that was the most important revelation of all. The weeks and months following Amanda's wedding were a time of profound transformation for me. The public confrontation had forced into the open issues that had been simmering beneath the surface for decades, and there was no going back to the uneasy status quo we had maintained for so long. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Rachel Sullivan, who specialized in family trauma and dysfunctional family systems. Our weekly sessions became anchors in a time of emotional turbulence, providing me with tools to process my feelings and understand the dynamics that had shaped my family relationships. What you experienced wasn't just occasional disapproval, Dr. Sullivan explained during one particularly insightful session. It was a consistent pattern of emotional neglect and conditional love. Children shouldn't have to earn their parents' affection by conforming to a predetermined image. These sessions helped me contextualize my experiences to understand that my feelings of inadequacy and constant striving for approval weren't character flaws, but natural responses to an unhealthy family environment. This understanding didn't immediately heal the wounds, but it provided a framework for processing them. In the aftermath of the wedding, several extended family members reached out to me. My cousin Michael organized a gathering at his home in Somerville, where 5 cousins and 2 aunts expressed their support and shared their own experiences with my parents' rigid expectations and obsession with appearances. I always felt uncomfortable with how they treated you, my Aunt Patricia admitted. But I told myself, it wasn't my place to interfere in how someone else raised their children. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. These connections with extended family were healing in ways I hadn't anticipated. For so long, I had believed that everyone in the family saw me the way my parents and sister did. Discovering that others had recognized the unfairness of my treatment, even if they hadn't spoken up at the time, helped validate my experiences. Surprisingly, Bradley maintained contact with me despite the tumultuous circumstances of our meeting. He and Amanda had gone through with the marriage after a day's postponement and intense discussions, but the relationship was clearly strained. We're in counseling, he told me, during one of our occasional lunches. Amanda is resistant to acknowledging her part in what happened, but she's attending the sessions. It's a start. I appreciated his updates, but was careful not to insert myself into their marriage. Bradley seemed to understand this boundary, and our conversations gradually shifted to other topics. His work in finance, my engineering projects, our shared interest in sailing. An unexpected friendship developed separate from my complicated relationship with my sister. My parents made several attempts to re-establish contact in the months following the wedding, but their approaches were telling. There were no apologies, no acknowledgments of wrongdoing. Instead, they acted as if the incident had been a minor disagreement, blown out of proportion. Your mother and I are hosting a dinner next weekend, my father said in a voicemail left 3 months after the wedding. We expect you to be there. It's time to put this nonsense behind us. The message contained everything I needed to know about their perspective. The public humiliation I had experienced was nonsense in their eyes, something to be swept under the rug rather than addressed. I declined the invitation. When they persisted with similar approaches, I finally sent them an email outlining my terms for resuming contact. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but only if it's based on mutual respect and genuine acceptance. This would require acknowledgement of past patterns, sincere apologies, and a commitment to change. I won't continue in a relationship where my worth is conditional on conforming to your expectations. Their response was silence, which was an answer in itself. The apartment I had purchased as a wedding gift for Amanda and Bradley remained in my name. After careful consideration, I decided to turn it into a vacation rental property. The income it generated provided an additional layer of financial security, allowing me to build savings while continuing my work in renewable energy engineering. 6 months after the wedding, Amanda reached out directly for the first time. Her message was brief, but revealing. Bradley says, I need to apologize to you. Fine. I'm sorry you felt excluded from my wedding, but you have to understand how important it was for everything to be perfect. Can we move past this now? Also, I've been thinking about the apartment. It really would make more sense for me and Bradley to have it. The message confirmed what I had suspected. Any reconciliation attempt was motivated by what she could get from me, not by genuine remorse or a desire to repair our relationship. I responded with equal brevity. I appreciate you reaching out, but a real apology acknowledges specific actions and their impact, not just someone's feelings about those actions. I'm open to a conversation when you're ready to take responsibility for your choices. As for the apartment, that opportunity has passed. Nearly a year after the wedding incident, I organized a gathering of my own. Not a formal family meeting, but a dinner at my apartment with the people who had supported me through this challenging time. Jordan, my closest friends, Aunt Patricia, and Uncle Robert cousins, Michael and Sarah, and even Bradley, who attended, without Amanda. As we sat around my dining table sharing food and conversation, I realized something profound had shifted in my understanding of family. For so long, I had equated family with blood relations, with the specific people I had been born to. But looking around at these individuals who had chosen to stand by me, who valued me for exactly who I was, I understood that family could be something we create rather than merely inherit. 2 weeks after that dinner, I received a request from my parents for a meeting. Something in the tone of the message suggested a different approach than their previous attempts at contact. After consulting with Dr. Sullivan, I agreed to meet them at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant in Cambridge. My parents looked older than I remembered, the year having taken its toll. My father's confident posture seemed slightly diminished, my mother's carefully maintained appearance showing subtle signs of strain. We exchanged awkward greetings before settling into an uncomfortable silence. We've been doing some thinking, my father began, uncharacteristic uncertainty in his voice, and some reading about family dynamics and patterns of behavior. My mother nodded. Your Aunt Patricia has been quite direct with us about her observations over the years. We're not here to make excuses, my father continued, but we want you to know that we're trying to understand how things went so wrong between us. It wasn't a full apology, not yet, but it was the first acknowledgement I had ever heard from them that something had indeed been wrong in our family, that the problem wasn't simply my failure to conform. That's a start, I said. Understanding is the first step toward change. The conversation that followed was halting, uncomfortable, and at times painful. But it was also more honest than any interaction we had ever had. There were moments of defensiveness, old patterns reasserting themselves, but also glimpses of genuine reflection. At the end of the meal, as we prepared to part ways, my mother asked, "Can we try again to be a family?" "We can try," I replied carefully. "But it has to be different this time. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not to make you comfortable. I won't accept conditional love or approval based on how well I fit your image of what a son should be." "We understand," my father said, and for once I believed he might actually be trying to. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The public humiliation at Amanda's wedding had been painful beyond measure. But it had also been the breaking point that forced change. Sometimes systems don't evolve until they're pushed to a crisis point. I had lost the family I had desperately tried to please for 30 years. But in that loss, I had found something more valuable: self-respect, authentic connections, and the freedom to define family on my own terms. The healing wasn't complete. Such deep wounds don't disappear overnight, but I was on a path I had chosen, surrounded by people who valued the real me. That night, I sat down at my computer and began writing my story, not out of a desire for revenge or validation, but as a way to process my experiences and perhaps help others who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. The act of putting it all into words was cathartic, a way of owning my narrative after decades of having it defined by others. Life continues to evolve. My relationship with my parents is a work in progress, with steps forward and occasional slides backward. Amanda and I maintain a distant but civil connection, primarily through Bradley. My circle of chosen family grows stronger, a network of mutual support and genuine acceptance. I still have moments of doubt, echoes of the old belief that I'm somehow fundamentally flawed or unworthy. But those moments grow fewer and farther between as I continue to build a life based on authenticity rather than appearances. The most important lesson I've learned is that sometimes walking away isn't an act of defeat, but an act of self-preservation and growth. Sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is to set boundaries with those who cannot or will not respect our worth. And sometimes in the space created by those boundaries, we find the room to build something new and beautiful. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? What helped you find the courage to stand up for yourself in challenging relationships? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, true family sees, accepts, and celebrates you exactly as you are.